Welcome to Gin with Gwyn. I'm Oliver Gwyn, and in this series, I talk about data, marketing, and philosophy. This week's thought is: did you know that bees can tell time? Let me explain. Pretty simple experiment took place in which a beekeeper put sugar water outside of a hive, and he noticed that when he did this at a particular time, after a few days, the bees learned, hey, there's going to be sugar water at 4 p.m. His conclusion was bees can tell time. But the scientists weren't happy with this. It wasn't conclusive. They said, well, maybe the bees can see the position of the sun in the sky. And so they did the experiment in the dark. And guess what? The bees came out at 4 p.m. Bees can tell time. But they still weren't happy. They thought maybe it was something to do with heat. At a certain time of the day, the temperature will be certain different. And so naturally, they moved the experiment to a limestone cavern where there's no light or heat. And the bees came out at 4 p.m. because bees can tell time. But that still wasn't enough for the scientists. They had not conclusively found that bees could tell time. And so, to prove that it wasn't something to do with the rotation of the Earth or time zones or something like that, they did the experiment again, this time in France. And then they moved the hive, first class plane ticket, to New York, where the bees came out at, can you guess it? That's right, 10 a.m. because the bees had jet lag, and bees can tell the time. Now, you're probably thinking, what does this have to do with business? Well, something similar actually happens in business a lot. You have a subject matter expert, somebody who knows their trade really well. They've got decades of experience in many cases, and at a glance, and often without data, they know something is wrong, or they know what the particular answer is to a problem simply by experiencing it before, by noticing trends and patterns that may not be obvious. But in today's data-driven world, that's often not good enough for stakeholders. And so what do? They go off and find more and more data to confirm or deny the subject matter's expert's opinion. Now, obviously, I work for a data company, and I'm not going to say to you that you shouldn't verify your thoughts with data. That's obviously a good thing to do. But companies go wrong. They go and find too much data. They go and find absolutely every single piece of data they can about a particular piece of information, much like the scientists with the beekeeper. And so in doing so, they actually suffer from analysis paralysis. There's too much data that they can't even see the obvious answer in front of them. So instead, what I like to do is think about this. What is the smallest amount of data or the smallest amount of information that I need to come to a decision? Now, that might not be the best or most well-informed decision in the world. It might be a heuristic data, a rough piece of data. But what is the easiest and fastest way for me to come to some decision based on data? And then once I've got that, depending on the timescales and everything else, I can always then go and look for more data to validate my claim. But I'm always thinking about what is one good question to ask versus 10 good questions to ask. And so when you're tackling a problem and you've got a subject matter expert, involve them in the problem because their gut instincts are probably right, and then think about what's the smallest and easiest amount of data you can use to validate their thoughts. And that is my thought of the week. Thanks for watching.